A San Francisco father whose 6-year-old son was shot dead while playing outside is just furious at San Francisco and specifically DA Chesa Boudin, who we have talked about in depth before.
My name is Jason Young. I'm the father of Jace Young, a 6-year-old who was gunned down here in San Francisco the 4th of July of 2020. Jace was outside playing with fireworks around 10:30 p.m. A group of individuals went to another neighborhood and fired from across the street. My son, as well as other people, were struck by the bullets, and he succumbed to his injuries. Smart, intelligent, energetic, sweetheart of a 6-year-old. He was a good one. It's a tragic, painful loss that, myself and my family, we deal with every day.
And so what he says is this: the police are doing their due diligence to try to solve these crimes and hold people accountable for these crimes. The district attorney's office is not willing to prosecute and hold these criminals accountable. Because of the politics and the policies of the district attorney, there's no accountability. We're a doomed city, especially with a district attorney like Chesa Boudin. It's time the reign of criminals who are destroying our city, it is time for it to come to an end. And it comes to an end when we take the steps to be more aggressive with law enforcement, more aggressive with the charges and our policies. Man who shot his son, who is one of the people involved with this mass shooting that happens outside of his home as they're watching 4th of July fireworks. He was 17 years old, and so he's being tried as a juvenile opposed to being an adult. And so it looks like he's going to serve 5 years for his crime. And the father, Jason Young, said, let's talk about the fact that the guilty verdict is only going to do maybe 5 years. My son barely lived that long. Some wonder why the Black community doesn't have faith in the justice system. We cannot help but feel if this had happened to a white child in another neighborhood, we would not be having this discussion. We would not have this result from a dismissive, out-of-touch district attorney. At the very least, there would be some real accountability in Jace's case. As the cycle of violence continues in San Francisco, our family and everyone else affected by this senseless crime and lack of accountability is traumatized. To be a victim of crime in San Francisco is a complete nightmare under District Attorney Boudin. He makes the San Francisco criminal justice system a complete joke. So he definitely has a lot of strong points, and he definitely is pretty spot on the money when it comes to how just messed up San Francisco has become.
When the guy ran, he had his platform and he said things like this, and everybody who had a brain knew that what the result would be. And you see it right now, a city that is in utter shambles, and crime out of control, where the lunatics run the asylum, and you knew what was going to happen.
The voice of the victims is the district attorney. That's the person who takes an oath to advocate for the victims and, fight for them and hold people that commit crimes against them accountable. And in this case, this is a clear case where that has not happened. She'll get recalled. We need to come back to the table and make sure that, stories like Jace's story and my family's story, are not repeated. They don't happen again, and there's accountability in the district attorney's office, because today and for the last year since he's been elected, there has not been real accountability coming out of that office.
So hopefully, they've got that referendum to kick him out. Hopefully that will work. But, it's just crazy. But they get what they deserve in many ways.
Yeah, you can't vote for these people and then be shocked that this happens. Who knows if Mr. Young voted in that election? Who knows his level of political involvement before this happened? A lot of people go through life not paying attention to these sorts of things. And then
they just pull the lever for the Democrat or the progressive. And these are the results. They're predictable.
Yeah.
It's a tragedy, really.
There was that great Substack article that recently came out from a woman who was talking about how is San Francisco, the most progressive city with the biggest budget, a complete hellscape.
Here is what confuses me about San Francisco. We have the most liberal left-wing government and population in the country. We have a $13 billion budget, and we have 8,000 people sleeping in the rain this week. Can someone please explain this to me?
You know, what has happened to this? And, you know, a lot of people are slam dunking on her because it's like, oh, she finally realizes this is what happens from these policies. And there's essentially a group of people that engorge themselves off this money. The Substack is called "Here's What Confuses Me About San Francisco" by Michelle Tandler. And this was a tweet thread of hers that she's turned into an article. And, you know, she kind of cites some of the words they use, like harm reduction, housing first, criminal justice, social justice, equity, and how it feels like those words really mean harm increased, housing last, victim injustice, social injustice, unfairness. And, you know, she openly admits that she's voted for these people for her entire life and how it's just been a complete failure. And so it's just interesting to kind of see how bad things have to get before people really realize what is going on. But you have to hope some people's eyes are being opened by
That's an interesting psychological story right there, Stu. How can people be so stupid and not see what's going on? Anybody with a brain knows what the problems have been, and know that when London Breed was elected, her platform, when Chesa Boudin was ran in his platform, that it would lead to just disastrous consequences. And of course it has.
And, you know, she did a good job with her article. And she did say this to lodge, and she's quoting Mark Twain, to lodge all power in one party and keep it there is to ensure bad government and the sure and gradual deterioration of public morals. Is this what's happening here? So it looks like she's completely woken up, but golly day, how much of a abusive relationship does it have to be with your local governance before you realize you've had
This is why these people should read the liberal arts and become aware of great literature and know their history. Lord Acton said, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Absolutely.
Perhaps if they weren't taking transgender basket weaving in college and were actually reading real history and real literature, then they might be aware of some of these things.